Josh, like I indicated before, let's just start with a little bit of your bio outside of your legal career. Tell me a little bit about where you're from, where you live now, your family situation, etc.
Absolutely.
I'll wait till... Let this guy go. Yes. What timing, brilliant. I couldn't script this any better.
Right, yeah.
My biggest fear was he was just going to loop around. All right, so then we can start raw here. Let me pose the question again.
Okay.
All right, Josh, so let's start with your biography outside of your legal career.
Absolutely. So I'm actually originally not from this area. I'm from downstate, from Long Island. I was raised, my brother and I were raised by my mother on her own. It's actually my first experience in court wasn't as a lawyer, it was as a child accompanying my mother to family court, where she was able to obtain child support to support my brother and I. And I think it's fair to say that without family court judge's intervention in my own life, I wouldn't be here today as a judicial candidate and as an attorney. So I grew up down on Long Island. I came up here to Binghamton University, which is where I fell in love with the area. I actually liked it so much that I stayed here year-round, all 4 years, much to my poor mother's chagrin. I was heavily involved in the community service back when I was in college. I actually won Mayor Bucci's award for community service for some food drives that I put on in the area. And because of Binghamton University, that's the reason why I met my wonderful wife, who's also a Binghamton University student, and now we both live up here and raise our two wonderful daughters. And the interesting story about that is that I met my wife at the wedding of a third Binghamton University alumni friend. So I went to Binghamton University for 4 years, and then I did my law school at University of Richmond School of Law.
Okay. And then what town do you currently reside in?
I'm currently a town of Vestal resident, and we've lived there for, about 10 years now.
Okay. So tell me now about your legal career. When did you pass the bar? What was your first job in the law?
Absolutely. So my legal career has been one where I've been in public service for the entirety of my career. I passed the bar in 2006, and my first job out of law school was as a prosecutor, a position that I held for 11 years. I always wanted to have a job as a lawyer where I wasn't just drawing a paycheck, but where I was really felt I could make a difference in the community, where I could sleep at night knowing that I had done something important for people. So I did that for 11 years. I ultimately specialized in homicides and other violent crimes, and specifically violent crimes committed against children, which is the reason I ultimately decided to run for family court judge. Tried over 100 cases as a prosecutor, including a number of high-profile homicide cases committed against children. And then, when I finished with that, I decided to take on a new role as a court attorney referee and as special counsel to our administrative judge, a position I've held now for approximately 4 years. In that role, I have two different things I do. One, as a court attorney referee, it's what's called a quasi-judicial role. I have my own calendar of cases. I hear cases much like a judge. I make decisions on those cases. Also, as special counsel, I'm responsible for supervising and training over 174 local criminal courts throughout our district. I'm responsible for teaching and training over 200 judges in a wide variety of laws. I'm also the Raise the Age coordinator for the 6th Judicial District. In that role, I supervise the rollout of juvenile justice laws in family courts in all 10 counties that make up our district, including Boone County.
In what ways would you say your experience gives you any special perspective on the family court system?
Absolutely. So my experience, I think, is unique amongst all the candidates. First of all, the reason that I'm running, and I know I alluded to this earlier, is because of my experience prosecuting child homicide cases. Every single child homicide case that I prosecuted had a history of family court involvement. And those were terrible, tragic cases. And when I was trying them, I couldn't help but think, if something had happened earlier in this case, if there had been a different outcome in family court, if a judge had ordered services or had calendared the case more quickly, those cases wouldn't have reached the desk of a prosecutor. So I have a unique perspective on the child abuse cases that come to family court, and in my opinion are the most important thing that a family court judge does. I also have unique experience with respect to the juvenile justice issues, which are a significant part of a family court judge's day-to-day role. Like I said, I supervise the Raise the Age program. I teach and train our family court judges on juvenile justice issues related to Raise the Age. My experience as a prosecutor has well prepared me for the domestic violence cases that family court hears. And finally, again, my experience with these child homicides has prepared me well for child custody, abuse, neglect, and cases like those.
Let's talk a little bit about your personality, your personal skills, your temperament. What makes you think you'd be a good judge?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I do is I'm responsible for teaching and training new and existing judges, and I do that every year. And one of the things that I always tell new judges is to recognize that people in court, everybody in court, is coming in front of you in a moment of crisis in their own lives. You know, people don't go to court generally. The only thing in family court that is generally positive are the adoptions. But the other cases in family court, people are coming in a moment of crisis. And the most important quality of any judge, in my opinion, is the ability to show compassion and empathy for the people that come before them. I tell the judges that I teach and train that you should treat the people that come before you the same way you would treat your own family member, with the same respect and the same compassion. And I think my unique experience amongst all the candidates is what suits me for this type of role. First of all, I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but I've worked every day of my life since I was 15 years old. My mother raised us on her own, as I indicated, and so I've had the experience of having to work to put myself through college, to work to put myself through law school, and in addition to that, both as a prosecutor and as somebody who teaches and trains judges, I've seen both the best of people and the worst of people, and I think it's that kind of perspective that gives me the judicial temperament, the compassion and the empathy that you want in your judge.
You've already alluded to this, but why do you think family court is important?
So family court judges are unique in our system of justice. Family court is the only court where there are no jury trials. It is a judge making the decisions. A judge is both what's called the finder of fact and the finder of law. And they are making decisions that drastically impact the lives of children and anyone else that comes before them. And these are life and death decisions. And these are the kinds of decisions that my previous experience, in my opinion, suits me to handle.
All right, so here's that ultimate question. Why should people vote for you to be one of the two Democrats in the fall election?
So to answer that question, I'm going to tell the story of when it was that I decided to run for family court judge. The very last case that I tried as a prosecutor involved a 2-year-old victim who was at that point the same age as my oldest daughter at the time. And that was a really tough, horrible case. It was a brutal set of facts. And I would go into court every day and I would try this horrific case. And there was this beautiful, cheerful little girl. I only knew her through pictures and videos, but she just reminded me so much of my own daughter at the time. And I would come home every night from that case and I'd see my own daughter. And and my own daughter is also wonderful. I'm biased, but she's just bubbly, and she'd run up and give me hugs, "Hi, Daddy," and she'd laugh, and every night I would think, my goodness, this other little girl is never going to get to do any of that again. And that was the last case I tried as a prosecutor, and that was when I decided, it's about 5 years ago now, that I would run for family court judge, because I can give those cases the attention they need. I have a unique perspective about those cases, and I feel like I can help prevent those kinds of tragic outcomes from occurring. So that's why I think people should vote for me for family court judge.
All right, so now is when I just throw out there, is there anything else that you'd like to say that I didn't ask about?
The only other thing I'd add is that, again, it's gotten a lot of press recently, the issues with child homicides and custody disputes, and I think it's important for voters to know that that is an important issue that impacts family court on a day-to-day basis. It is important to elect judges that you trust to make these kinds of decisions on child custody cases, and it's important to elect judges that make good decisions on juvenile justice cases that can affect the lives of children for the rest of their lives. So that's why I think it's important to know that that's one of the areas that I specialize in, and